You don't know what it is to be rendered invisible until you're standing in the house you designed, watching another man take credit for your life's work. The air in the Gala Publications headquarters smelled of money and orchids, expensive, bloodless. I stood by the marble column, a flute of champagne warming in my hand, as the CEO praised the visionary architect behind our new global headquarters. On the stage, basking in the spotlight, was my uncle, Charles Whitlock. Silver-haired, impeccably tailored, the man who'd taken me in when my parents died, the benevolent patron. A testament to innovative, sustainable design, he was saying, gesturing to the soaring glass atrium above us, the atrium whose stress calculations had kept me awake for 3 months, a space that speaks to our future. The crowd applauded. I took a slow sip. The champagne tasted like ashes. My cousin Lydia materialized at my elbow, her smile sharp enough to cut glass. "Still lurking in the corners, Prince? Some things never change." She glanced at my simple black suit. "Did you have to rent that, or is it from the before times?" I didn't look at her. My eyes were fixed on the scale model displayed beside the stage, a perfect miniature of the building. My building. Every line, every angle, every hidden geothermal conduit was mine. And on the brass plaque beneath it, designed by Charles Whitlock and Associates. My name was nowhere. It had been scrubbed, like I'd never existed. "To the future," I murmured, toasting the empty air. Lydia sniffed and moved back to her circle. They were all there, the Whitlock dynasty. My aunt, my cousins, the sycophants and satellites. They'd gathered to celebrate the crowning achievement of the family firm. The firm I'd built from a failing practice into an industry leader. The firm from which I'd been quietly, surgically removed 6 months ago. Charles finished his speech to another round of applause. His eyes scanned the crowd, passing over me without a flicker of recognition. I was part of the scenery, the charity case who'd gotten above himself, the problem they'd solved. I set the champagne glass on a passing tray. The crystal rang with a clear, final note. My phone vibrated in my pocket, a single-word text from my lawyer. Cleared. The revenge wasn't going to be a scene. It wasn't going to be a shout in this elegant room. It was going to be a structural collapse. And I was the only one who knew where the load-bearing walls had been replaced with tissue paper.
My name is Prince Duke. For 15 years, I was the ghost in the machine of Whitlock and Associates. When my parents died in the car crash, Charles became my guardian. He was my father's older brother, a successful architect. He gave me a room above the garage, a job as a draftsman after school, and a narrative. I saved you. Everything you have is because of my generosity. I believed it. I was grateful. I poured that gratitude into work. While my cousins partied, I mastered CAD software. While they traveled, I studied structural engineering and sustainable design. I had a knack for it, a feel for how spaces should breathe, how light should fall. Charles began putting my designs in front of clients, presenting them as collaborative efforts. The firm flourished. We landed bigger projects, corporate campuses, municipal buildings. The Whitlock aesthetic became synonymous with sleek, eco-friendly innovation. What the clients didn't know was that the Whitlock was me, Prince, the quiet nephew in the back office, solving the problems Charles couldn't. The Gala Publications headquarters was my magnum opus, a net-zero energy skyscraper with a revolutionary passive cooling system. I'd conceived it, modeled it, fought the city for the permits. The night we won the bid, Charles took me to dinner. He clasped my shoulder. "This is it, Prince, the project that puts us in the history books. We'll put your name on this one, I promise." A promise was a currency I'd learned never to trust. 2 months into construction, I was restructured out. Charles called it a strategic pivot. Lydia, now head of operations, handed me the severance agreement. The firm needs to streamline, Prince. You understand. It's not personal. It was profoundly personal. They were cutting me out before the project finished, before the accolades rained down, before I could claim any public credit. The severance was generous. Hush money dressed as compassion. A non-disclosure agreement threatened to sue me into oblivion if I ever spoke about my contributions. I signed. What choice did I have? I was the orphan, the dependent. The narrative was too strong. But I made a copy of the agreement, and I took something else they never thought to secure: the root administrative access to the firm's entire digital ecosystem. I'd built their server architecture, their project management platform, their secure client vaults. I was the system administrator they forgot they had. For 6 months, I played my part. I moved into a small apartment. I took freelance work. I let them believe I was broken, defeated, the genius they'd safely contained and discarded.
And all the while, I conducted my own forensic audit. From the outside, Whitlock & Associates was a gleaming fortress. From within its digital walls, I saw the cracks. The corners cut on municipal safety inspections for the library project. The overstated sustainability credentials on the Tech Haven campus to secure tax breaks. The consulting fees paid to a city councilman's shell company to fast-track the Gala permits. But the masterstroke was the Gala building itself. In their rush to cut costs after my departure, Charles had approved a substitution for the specialized, non-flammable composite cladding I'd specified. He'd switched to a cheaper alternative, a product with a failing fire safety rating in Europe, a product that would never pass a rigorous surprise inspection. I had the email chain. I had the forged safety certification. I had the proof that the crown jewel of his legacy was, literally, a tinderbox. They thought they were architects. I was a structural engineer, and I was about to show them the difference. Revenge, in my world, is not about emotion. It's about load distribution. You find the point of greatest stress, and you apply pressure. My target wasn't Charles's reputation. It was his bond, the multi-million-dollar performance and payment bond guaranteeing the Gala project. The financial instrument that said Whitlock & Associates would finish the job and do it to code. If the bond were called, the surety company would pay for the repairs, then come after Charles for every penny. They would seize firm assets, personal assets, everything. It was financial annihilation. To call the bond, I needed an official trigger. A city inspection wouldn't be enough. Charles had the councilman in his pocket. I needed a bigger gun. I found it in the form of a fire safety compliance report. Not from the city, from Gala Publications' own global risk insurance carrier. Their policy required an independent, third-party review of all new construction. Charles had been delaying it for months. Using my backdoor access, I became a ghost in the machine. I drafted an official-looking final notice from the insurance underwriter, Lambert & Stern. I scheduled it to be delivered to both Charles and Gala's CEO. Then I created a second identity, an anonymous tipster email to Lambert & Stern's actual compliance department, with scanned excerpts of the substandard cladding specs and the failed European tests. Urgent safety concern regarding your insured's new headquarters.
The trap was set. The external pressure would force the inspection. The inspection would fail. The insurance company would refuse coverage. Gala Publications would have no choice but to call the performance bond to make the building safe. While this digital clock ticked, I prepared the second phase, the auction. The Whitlock family had one unifying dream: to own the historic Alderwood estate, a 100-acre property with a decaying Gilded Age mansion on the market for the first time in 50 years. It was a symbol of old money, of permanence. Charles had been boasting about it for years. The final piece of the legacy, he'd say. They'd pooled family resources, secured financing. The auction was in 2 weeks. It was their victory lap. I registered to bid under the name of an anonymous LLC, Dukehold. The registration required proof of funds. I provided a letter from a private Swiss bank. The funds came from the severance they had given me, leveraged 10 times over through a series of high-risk, high-reward investments my broker friend had guided me through. I'd bet everything on my own research. I'd won. The morning of the Alderwood auction, I dressed not as Prince the Castoff, but as a representative of a formidable, unknown entity. I arrived late. The Whitlocks were clustered together, Charles at the center, already holding his paddle like a scepter. Lydia saw me first. Her smile was venomous. "Look who's slumming. Come to watch how real transactions are done, Prince?" I just took my paddle, number 7, and found a seat in the back. The bidding started at 5 million. It climbed quickly. 6, 7, 8. The Whitlock group bid aggressively, confidently. At 10 million, the field narrowed to them and one other bidder. At 12, the other dropped out. The auctioneer called, 12 million going once. Charles shot a triumphant glance at his family. I raised my paddle. 13 million from bidder 7. The room swiveled. Charles's head snapped around. His eyes found mine. Confusion, then dawning ice-cold horror. Lydia half stood. "That's a mistake. He can't." "Your bid is recognized, sir," the auctioneer said firmly. "Do we have 13.5? Charles flushed, raised his paddle. 13.5. His voice cracked. 14, I said, my voice calm in the dead silence. 14.5.
It was over. I knew their financials. Their ceiling was 14.8. They were leveraged to the hilt on the assumption no one would challenge them. The auctioneer called it. Sold to bidder 7 for $15 million. The silence was absolute. I stood, walked to the front to sign the preliminary papers. As I passed Charles, he grabbed my arm. His fingers were trembling. "What have you done? Where did you get that money?" I leaned close. "I designed it," I whispered. I left him standing there, the future patriarch on the crumbling edge of his dream. The twin shocks, losing Alderwood, and the looming insurance inspection sent the family into a tailspin. But the true collapse was just beginning. The day after the auction, the insurance inspectors arrived at the gala building with thermal cameras and core samplers. Charles tried to delay, to obfuscate, but the tip had been too specific. They went straight to the cladding. The failure was catastrophic. The report cited egregious code violations and material misrepresentation. Gala Publications' insurance was suspended. Their lawyers invoked the performance bond. The surety company moved with brutal efficiency. They froze the firm's accounts. They filed liens on every Whitlock & Associates project. They initiated proceedings to seize Charles's personal assets, the house, the cars, the investments. I watched it unfold from the command center of my small apartment, monitors showing financial news alerts, property records, and the secure feed from the firm's own security cameras I still controlled. I saw the panic in the office, the frantic calls, the day the marshals arrived to change the locks on the firm's doors. Charles called me. His voice was shattered. "Prince, you have to help me. You understand the systems, the projects. You can talk to the bond company, explain." "Explain what, Charles?" I asked. "That you substituted unsafe materials to save money? That you forged documents? I have the emails. Would you like me to send them to the surety adjuster?" A long, dead silence. It was you. The tip. Alderwood. I'm an architect. I believe in integrity of materials. You built on a faulty foundation. It was only a matter of time before it fell. The final meeting was not with Charles, but with the surety company's lead adjuster, a severe woman named Miss Morris. She discovered my severance agreement and the NDA. She suspected my knowledge was the key to their recovery case against Charles. "Mr. Duke," she said, placing a digital recorder on the table between us, "we are prepared to offer you immunity from any liability related to your prior employment
and a consultant's fee in exchange for your full testimony and all documentation in your possession regarding the Gala building and any other fraudulent practices. And the NDA? I asked. Null and void. We'll have it invalidated. His fraud voids the contract. I slid a flash drive across the table. Everything is there. The cladding substitution, the bribes to the councilmen for the library project, the inflated green certifications, the shell company payments, the root directory access logs showing I designed 70% of the firm's profitable projects over the last decade. Miss Morris inserted the drive. Her eyes scanned the contents. She looked up, a flicker of something like pity in her gaze. He stole your entire career, I corrected. But you can't steal a foundation. You can only build on it. Or fail to. The legal aftermath was a public unraveling. Whitlock and Associates was dissolved. Charles faced criminal fraud charges. The councilman resigned. The family fortune, built so carefully on the backs of others, evaporated. They sold everything to pay legal fees and settlements. The Alderwood estate became my office, not a trophy, but a workshop. I restored the carriage house into a stunning, modern studio. Duke and Associates opened with 3 employees, me, my old broker, and a brilliant young architect I'd mentored who'd also been cheated by a big firm. Our first client was the surety company, hiring us to oversee the remediation of the Gala building. I supervised the removal of the faulty cladding, the installation of the correct, safe material, the original specs I'd drawn up years before. The irony was not lost on the construction crew. On a rainy afternoon, Lydia came to see me at Alderwood. She looked diminished, stripped of her sharp edges. She stood in the doorway of the carriage house, not daring to enter. "I have no right to ask," she began, her voice small. "But my father, the legal bills." I waited. Could you lend?" "No, Lydia," I said gently. "I can't." Tears filled her eyes, but they were tears of frustration, not remorse. "After everything our family did for you, you housed me, and I built your fortune. The ledger, when finally examined, showed a deficit on your side. I don't owe you a debt. I settled it."
She left. I never saw any of them again. The Gala building was finished, finally, to its true design. At the reopening, the CEO sought me out. "It's a masterpiece, Mr. Duke. It's a shame the world doesn't know it's yours." "It knows now," I said. And it did. The court records, the surety company's testimony, my own quiet but firm interviews with architectural journals, the truth was now part of the building's permanent record. Last week I walked the grounds of Alderwood at dusk. The main mansion, still unrestored, stood as a silent monument to faded ambition. I had no desire to live in it. It was a relic. My home was the clean-lined, light-filled space I'd built behind it. My phone chimed. An alert. The final lien on the old Whitlock firm's assets had been released. The case was closed. I looked up at the first stars appearing in the violet sky. For 15 years, I lived in a house of mirrors where my reflection was distorted to make others look larger. I was the hidden support beam, the uncredited design, the ghost in the walls. They tried to delete me from the blueprint of my own life. So I became the demolition expert. I didn't destroy their house. I simply removed the fraudulent shorings and let the weight of their own choices bring it down. Now the air is clear. The site is safe. And from the rubble, I am building something with my name on the foundation. Not for revenge, for permanence.